Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video. In the earlier classes, we discussed about the provisions in relation to determination of residential status of individual, and prior to that, we tried to identify the differences between citizenship and residential status, whereas citizenship is something which is permanent and long-term in nature. Residential status might change every year also, and definitely residential status has to be determined for every previous year. And there are different types of residential statuses for different types of SSCs. For individuals and HUF, there are three possibilities: ROR, RNOR, and NR. For all others, there are only two possibilities: either resident or non-resident. And how to determine the residential status of an individual? By checking the basic conditions. We tried to understand that earlier, wherein individual will be called as a resident only when any one of the following conditions is satisfied. So we can call these conditions for our understanding purposes as basic condition 1 and basic condition 2. So what is basic condition 1? If he stays in India for a period of 182 days or more during the previous year. And what is basic condition number 2? If he stays in India for a period of 60 days or more during the previous year and 365 days or more during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. If by any chance any person, any individual does not satisfy at least one condition also, then he shall be a non-resident. We can say in a reverse way, if any person who has not satisfied both of the conditions or who has satisfied none of the conditions can be called as non-resident. For a person to be called as resident, at least one of these conditions should be satisfied by that SSC. Of course, we have seen also the exceptions where condition number 2 is not applicable, which means only a person will be called as a resident in the following cases: if he has stayed for a period of 182 days or more during the previous year, and second condition will not be applicable in the following cases. Like what? An Indian citizen leaving India during the previous year for the purpose of employment outside India, or as a member of crew of Indian ship. So either way, that person falls under exceptional category if he is leaving India for purpose of employment, or if he is leaving as a member of crew of Indian ship also, then also he falls under exceptional category of this 182 days condition only being applied to them. Second condition does not apply to such person. Of course, he has to be an Indian citizen. Basically, he should be in India and he is leaving India during the previous year. Why? Either for the purpose of employment or as a member of crew of Indian ship. So here the person is going from India to outside India. And in the second case, if an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin visits India during the previous year, then also he will be falling under exceptional category. Then also only condition number 1 is applied. Then also condition number 2 is not applicable. But look at the person who is he here. He is an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin. Basically, he stays outside India normally. Now, during the previous year, he is visiting India. So, in the first case, the SSC is leaving India. In the second case, SSC is visiting India. So, in the first case, SSC is going outside India, out of India. The second case, SSC is coming into India. That difference is there. The first case is applicable for only Indian citizens. Second case is applicable for both Indian citizens and persons of Indian origin. Of course, we should still look at what is the meaning of person of Indian origin. We will come to that also now. Before that, there are some other points also which we have noted earlier, which are also important to be remembered always, which could be also asked as like twist points in the questions. Of course, most of them we already discussed. Like what? Residential status is determined for every year separately. Yes, residential status is not something permanent. It has to be calculated every year. India includes territorial waters of India. We already know this from the definition of India itself. Now another new point, employment includes self-employment. So when we say here somebody is leaving India during the previous year for the purpose of employment outside India, employment don't take it too literally. Employment includes self-employment also. Imagine if a professional, let us say some architect, is going outside India during the previous year for some assignment to be done. Say some engineer is going outside India for an assignment to be done during the previous year. In that case also, they are all self-employed. That also is called as employment. So employment does not mean the way what we normally think. It includes self-employment. It is a clarification given by CBDT. That is also part of law. Then while computing the period of 182 days, not only 182 days, actually while computing 182 days, 60 days, 365 days, all these cases, whenever we compute the number of days of stay in India, the day of entry into India and the day of exit from India shall also be included. Whatever the time at which entry or exit happened generally will not be important. The day of entry and the day of exit both should be included while calculating the number of days of stay in India. For example, if somebody has arrived at the airport at let us say 11 o'clock in the night, effectively he stayed in India only for 1 hour, but even then it will be considered as if it is a full day because entry into India happened on that day. So once the date changes, then that day onwards the counting will start. So whichever the day the SSC has entered into India and whichever the day the SSC has exited from India, both days shall be included as part of period of stay. That is a very important point for calculations. Here if 1 day difference is there also in calculations, naturally the answer could go wrong. So be very careful in applying that point. And other thing is generic point, like is it compulsory that the period of stay should be continuous? There is something like that, nothing like that. Or should it be at the same place? Nothing like that. So period of stay need not be continuous, need not be at the same place also. So there is no rule like that when we talk about period of stay. However, India is India. Wherever in India doesn't matter. Then as we discussed about this exception of person of Indian origin, who is a person of Indian origin? So simply this is the definition given. A person of Indian origin is a person who himself or any of his parents or any of his grandparents was born in undivided India. Undivided India means before 1947 naturally. So that is what is called as a person of Indian origin. Once again read it carefully. Who is a person of Indian origin? Either himself or any of his parents, father or mother, doesn't matter. One of the parents is born in undivided India or any of his grandparents was born in undivided India. Then also that person can be called as a person of Indian origin, popularly called as PIO. So imagine there is somebody whose grandparents were originally from Karachi, Pakistan. Now, those people before 1947 itself, let us say they moved to Canada, and after that 2 generations have passed, and now there is one guy who is the grandson of those people who went to Canada before India was split. Then, can this young person be called as person of Indian origin? Absolutely yes. Why? Though he is not born in undivided India, though his parents were not born in undivided India, his grandparents, any one of them is enough. If they were born in undivided India, then that person will be called as person of Indian origin. And very important point to note here is undivided India. So somebody was born in India does not make him person of Indian origin. Somebody born in undivided India or any of his parents born in undivided India or any of his grandparents born in undivided India makes him person of Indian origin. Again, already some people started imagining person of Indian origin is as good as Indian citizen. They will also have some rights. Absolutely don't do that. As I told earlier, we cannot imagine things according to our whims and fancies. What we are knowing, who is a person of Indian origin. That's all. Nothing more than that. What happens to a person of Indian origin? For us, what is important? Because person of Indian origin also, if he visits during the previous year to India, he falls under exceptional category. Hence, the second condition is not applicable for that person. That's all. Beyond that, there is no other conclusion we should draw. And don't think that persons of Indian origin will automatically get visits to India. They can just like that land in some airport and enter into India because they are persons of Indian origin. Nobody is going to keep any red carpet for them. They are also like any other persons who are not citizens of India. See, if they are citizens of India, we don't need to look at PIO, no? If somebody is a citizen of India, somebody has an Indian passport, we don't even look at this particular PIO situation at all. But somebody is not an Indian, not having Indian passport, but he is a PIO, that is a person of Indian origin. So what they should ideally do in reality, there is a card separately called as PIO card, person of Indian origin card. Everybody will not get it, that's what we should understand. That is the discretion of the government, whom it will grant the person of Indian origin card, and whether the government of India allows anybody into India or not is none of our business. That is not what we are talking about. If they allowed, then only they will come, no? So this second case, when somebody is visiting India, a person of Indian origin, how is it possible? Without visa, it is not possible. And who is giving visa? Government only is giving visa. So we are not here to decide whether government should give visa, should not give visa, whether it will give visa, will not give visa. We are not the ones to decide. It is absolutely the discretion of central government. That is none of our business. Only thing what we are bothered about is who is a person of Indian origin, who can be called as a person of Indian origin. We are not interested in the rights or obligations or any other matters related to persons of Indian origin. We are only bothered about, yes, if there is a person of Indian origin who visits India during the previous year, that person of Indian origin will be called as a resident only if he stayed in India for a period of 182 days or more during the previous year. Otherwise, that person will not be called as a resident. That is what we should be interested. Other than that, this PIO is altogether something related to the immigration policy of the country, which is completely a different subject. So, that's what person of Indian origin means. Definition is important, can be asked in MCQ type questions to identify the correct definition. So, what is the correct definition? A person who himself or any of his parents or any of his grandparents were born in undivided India can be called as a person of Indian origin. And if such person of Indian origin visits India during the previous year, he can fall under exceptional category. That's it. That is about the residential status of individuals in a nutshell. But that is only checking basic conditions. From this, what we can conclude whether a person is a resident or non-resident. That's all. But when we talk about individuals, that is not enough. We need to also check whether that person is a ROR or RNOR. For that, we have to check additional conditions. And there are two ways of checking it. We can check it for RNOR, we can check it for ROR. Both we discussed earlier, but better is ROR since it is simpler. So how to check a person is ROR or not? When a person is called ROR, if that person satisfies both the following conditions. When? One, that person should have been resident in India for at least 2 out of 10 years immediately preceding the previous year. And why and? Because both conditions are to be satisfied. He should have been in India for a period of 730 days or more during 7 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. If any person satisfies both these two conditions, then that person is called ROR. If he satisfies any one of these conditions only, he will be RNOR. If he does not satisfy any of these conditions also, he will be called as RNOR, which means resident but not ordinarily resident. So for anybody to be called as resident and ordinarily resident, that person should be satisfying both these additional conditions. We can call this additional condition number 1. This is additional condition number 2. If additional condition number 1 only is satisfied, 2 is not satisfied, or vice versa, still that person is RNOR. When we can call him ROR? If both additional condition number 1 and 2 and they are satisfied, then only he is ROR. And what are those conditions once again? He should be resident in India for a period of at least 2 out of 10 years immediately preceding the previous year. Second thing is he should be staying in India. And there is a difference here. Some people will just casually read it and without giving much attention to detail. See, there is a difference between being a resident in India, staying in India for 730 days. Staying means it is number of days of stay. Residence means that is the residential status of that person. So here number of days of stay is not directly calculated. Residential status of that person is calculated, and after we calculated, it turned out that that person is a resident. Resident only. Whether he was RNO or RO, again here we don't need, because the Lord never asked us to do so. Law only asked whether this person is resident or not. If he is a resident enough. If he is resident for at least 2 years out of 10 years immediately preceding the previous year, and he has been in India, stay in India for 730 days or more during 7 years immediately preceding the previous year, then that person can be called as ROR, resident and ordinarily resident. Otherwise, the same person will be called as RNOR, which means resident but not ordinarily resident. These are the various aspects of residential status we discussed, and I gave you a task to be done. I hope all of you have done it, and if you have done it, then you can check your answers with the following solutions. Let us look at the questions one by one and how to answer them. What should be the approach? First question: X came to India for the first time on 5th June of the previous year and departed on 3rd December of the previous year. Find his residential status. Certain facts are very important. X, Y, Z is not important. He came for the first time to India is important. Means what? Prior to the previous year, he was never in India. Never he came to India. For the first time, he is coming to India. That is a fact which is to be noted. Second fact which is to be noted is the number of days of stay. That is the most important fact, all cases. So when we talk about the arrival, day of arrival is 5th June. When the day of arrival is 5th June, how many number of days he would have stayed in June, that we should know. And then July and so on. When we have these things, up to what? Up to August, September, October, November, December. Actually, you have to do this on paper, normally speaking. So June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So these are the months where this person X has stayed in India. But how many days he stayed in each of these months, that we should calculate carefully. In June, how many days he stayed, including the day of arrival. Including the day of arrival, which is 5th June. So how many days in June he would have stayed? After 4th June, how many more days will be there? 26 days. That is in June. July has 31, we should know that. August has 31, we should know that. September, October has 31, we should know that. November has 30. December he stayed for only 3 days, again including the day of departure. So the number of days of stay in each month, first of all, we should note. June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Only calculations carefully to be done is the month of arrival, month of departure. Remaining things are only just to know how many number of days that month will have. This is primary school stuff. So July, August, September, October, November. December 3 days only because he is departed on that day. June 26 days he stayed in India because he came on 5th. So total number of days of stay, how many days he stayed in India? What is the answer? Exactly 182 days. He stayed in India during the previous year. So when a person stays in India during the previous year for 182 days or more, then naturally what is the residential status of that person? He is resident. No doubt about it. This guy is resident. But can we say that is enough? We will stop there. Some of you would have stopped there telling that he is resident. That is wrong answer. Any individual's residential status cannot stop with this word resident. It has to be resident and ordinarily resident, or resident but not ordinarily resident. So it is very easy here to note what is this kind of person. Resident, yes, for sure. But is he ordinarily resident? We have to check. Was he resident in India? What are the conditions? Was he resident in India at least 2 out of 10 years preceding the previous year? No chance, because he came for the first time only during the previous year. So here condition number 1, additional condition, is not satisfied. That itself is enough to call him, that's enough, one is enough to call him a resident, but not ordinarily resident. But just for understanding purposes, check the additional condition number 2 also. Whether he stayed for 730 days or more during the 7 years preceding the previous year? No. So he did not satisfy even one of the additional conditions. Means what? This person is resident but not ordinarily resident. Instead of using all this, we just call this guy generally RNOR. Simple. That is the final residential status of Mr. X. I hope everybody got the same answer. If not, check your answer with this. The final answer, correct answer should be what? RNOR. That is the correct answer. Here if you calculate any one day wrong, answer will be wrong also. That is the crucialness, importance of precision and provisions to be known very perfectly and thoroughly. That is the reason why I always tell. One day also here and there a little bit error, just a calculation mistake, sir. No, that calculation mistake will give you 0 marks, sir. Because answer will be wrong because of that calculation mistake. So you have to be very thorough with the calculations. So 5th June he has come means in June he stayed for 26 days. Later he stayed for these many days. Then in December 3 days. Total in the previous year 2019-20, whichever previous year it might be, the number of days of stay in India is 182, which makes him resident. But what type of resident? Resident but not ordinarily resident, since he did not satisfy any one of the additional conditions also. That's it. That is answer for question number 1. Now moving to question number 2. This is also a question which is similar to what we have solved earlier. And a British national comes to India for the first time during 15-16 and during the financial years 15-16, 16-17, etc., etc. He has stayed for so many days in India. What is his residential status? He is asking. So let us take the years first of all, 2015-16, 2016, 17, like that. Okay, it's not happening. So 2017, 18, then 2018, 19, then 2019, 20. Like this, we have many number of years for which we need to find out the number of days of stay in India. So these are the number of years which are given because he is a British national. Normally he doesn't stay in India, but he came to India for the first time during 2015-16. How many days he stayed in 2015-16? Look at and read the question carefully. He was in India for 52 days, he said. So that's what we need. We need the number of days of stay in India. So how many days he stayed? 52. Then in 16-17, 62. Then in 17-18, 78. Then in 18-19, 159. And in 19-20, 110 days. 110 days he stayed. So this one is different. Why? Because this is our previous year. So basic condition number 1. Did he stay for 182 days or more during the previous year? Answer is no. He did not stay for 182 days or more. So basic condition number 1 is not satisfied. But that cannot be leading us to any conclusion. We have to check basic condition number 2. What is that? Did he stay for 60 days or more during the previous year? Yes, he did. And he should have stayed for more than 365 days during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. So what is the total of all these 4? What is the total of them? That is 351 days only. Means what? He did not stay for 365 days or more during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. That means what is the residential status of Mr. Andy? He is a non-resident. That's it. That is the conclusion. Everybody should get The same answer, that is the final answer. He is a non-resident. That is the answer. How can we conclude? Because basic condition number 1 is not satisfied, basic condition number 2 is also not satisfied. In 4 years immediately preceding the previous year, he stayed for only 351 days, less than 365 days, hence he is a non-resident. That is question number 2. Then moving on to question number 3. This is a very interesting question. Hopefully, most of you should have done this correctly. Very important one. This actually is a test of whether you understood the residential status provisions perfectly or not. And a bit of common sense and logic also has to be applied, not just provisions. So let us see this question number 3. What is the question? X, being an Indian citizen, got a job offer in Switzerland. Okay. First of all, he is an Indian citizen, that we should know. And he got an offer in Switzerland, whichever country, that is not important. He got an employment opportunity outside India. And he wants to stay in India as long as possible. And he still wants to be a non-resident in India. That is the question. Means what? He wants to stay in India as long as possible, and he wants to be still called as a non-resident in India. Again, nobody can say, I want myself to be called as non-resident, I want myself to be called as ROR. You will be called as whatever you are depending upon your facts. But if you have that opportunity with you to plan your journey so that you want to be called as a non-resident, then the question is, when should he depart for Switzerland? That is the question. So basically, he is Indian citizen, leaving India during the previous year for an employment. First of all, answer to the question to be identifying this guy belongs to exceptional category. He is not belonging to normal category. So condition number 2, the basic condition number 2 is not at all applicable for this guy. So 60 days, 365 in 4 years, that is useless for this guy. Why? Because he is Indian citizen, leaving India during the previous year for the purpose of employment. Hence, there is no applicability of basic condition number 2. Only basic condition number 1 will apply. Means what? He will be called as a resident only if he stays for 182 days or more. 182 days or more. Then such person will be called as resident in India. But his target is not that. His target is to be called as non-resident. So naturally, when can he be called as non-resident? If he has a choice, in this case he has. When can he be called as non-resident? If he stays for less than 182 days. Less than 182 days. If he stays in India, he can be called as non-resident. If he stays for 182 exactly also, he will be called as resident. Because his objective is to be called as non-resident and to stay in India as long as possible. What is the maximum number of days he can stay in India and still be called as non-resident? That is 181 days. That first of all we should be identifying. So, if his intention is to stay in India as long as possible and also still be called as non-resident, there is a possibility for this guy because he is in exceptional categorization. He can stay in the previous year for 181 days, but still he can be called as non-resident in India. Of course, if he stays for one more day, he will become resident. So 181 days is okay. 181 days if he stays, he still becomes a non-resident in India. Now simple logic. 181 days means when he has to depart for Switzerland, he is asking. He is basically staying in India, that we should remember. So in April, how many days he should stay in India? Naturally 30 days, because April has 30 days. May also, he will stay in India. During the previous year only we are talking. There is no need to specially mention every time during the previous year, during the previous year. Always residential status is calculated for one previous year only. So during the previous year, which starts from April, first month he would have stayed for 30 days, second month May. So we can just have this months here, April, May, and there might be other months also like June, July, August, September. We'll see to what extent he can stay depending upon the number of days. But he cannot stay for more than 181 days. 30 is okay. 31 is also okay. So by the end of April, he would be staying for 30 days. End of May, he would be staying for 61 days. Then again June 30, July, August. Let us see how this cumulative number is coming to. So if by end of April, 30 days, by end of May, it should be 30 plus 31 means cumulatively he stayed for 61 days. But not only that, by end of June, it would have been 91 days, or by end of July, it would have been 122 days. Then by end of August, it would have been 153 days. By end of September, it would have been 183 days. No, not possible. So October definitely he cannot stay. Leave October. September also he cannot stay for 183 days. If he stayed for entire September, the total number of days of stay would become 183. So April, May, June, July, August. He can stay full months because total of that is 153 only. But in September he cannot stay for the entire 30 days. If he stays, then this becomes 183, which is not his target. His target is he should have number of days of stay in India only 181. So what should he do? Let us say in September he stays for 28 days only. Then naturally the number of days of stay would become, that is 181. So if he departs on 28th of September, simple, then including the day of departure, that also will be included, no? So already how many days are included in September? 28th also being included. Even after including that, the total period of stay during the previous year is only 181 days, which is our original target. If he stays for one more day, by the way, if he departs on 29th of September, then 182 days it will become, then he becomes a resident. But he wants to be a non-resident means he has to depart, means his air ticket has to be booked on 28th of September 2019. For us, that is our previous year. So 28th September should be his ticket. If he leaves India on 28th September, then he will be still called as a non-resident, since though he stayed for 181 days, he did not cross 182 days. So correct answer here is 28th September. That's all. How many of you got the correct answer? Check your answer correctly. This is very crucial point to note, and this is a litmus test of understanding of provisions as well as applying little bit of logic when some tax planning is asked for. Like this, people may come and ask, sir, I want to travel, I want to go abroad for employment, for example, but I still want to be called as non-resident. When should I book my ticket? That was the question. You cannot say, oh, you book it whenever you want. No, because his target is clear. He wants to be called as non-resident. So for that purpose, you need a date. So that date is 28th September. That is the answer. 28th September is the answer. Clear? So that is the answer for question number 3. Next, question number 4 is once again a straightforward question. On 1st June 2017, BG, a Malaysian citizen, leaves India after a period of 10 years of stay. Means prior to June 2017, this person was in India only for 10 years, not 1 or 2. 10 years, this person was in India only. Though they are not Indian citizen, he is there in India. Don't ask me what he is doing and all. That is none of our business. So some Malaysian citizen staying in India for 10 years, but left India on 1st June 2017. And during the financial year 1819 it is mentioned, he came to India for a period of 46 days. Later, he returned to India for 1 year on 10th October 2019. That is our previous year. Determine BG's residential status for the assessment year 2020-21, which is once again our assessment year. So here also same thing. We need to better go backwards. 2019-20 is what? Is our previous year. So 2018-19 is the year before that. Same way, 2017-18 is the year before that. 2019 16, 17 is the year before that, 2015, 16 is the year before that. Like this, there will be so many years which are all before that. There will be so many of them like that. But let us see the data what is available with us, to what extent it is available. 2019-20, first of all, how many days this BG has stayed in India? Some of you would have definitely done this mistake by reading this word. He returned to India for 1 year. That 1 year some people would have taken as 365 days here. If yes, that is wrong. If no, that is good. Why is that? We are not interested in his plans. We are not interested in his travel plans. He wants to come for 1 year. He wants to come back to India for the entire life of this guy, for the remaining life. That is none of our business. Our job is to calculate, not to look for useless information. He returned to India for 1 year. That 1 year is misleading information. Intentionally it was given for a trap. I hope you did not fall in the trap. If you did, come out of that trap first. This 1 year is a trap. That is not at all relevant information. What is relevant? Dates are relevant. Okay, during previous year he came. Yes. When he came? On 10th of October. Means how many number of days during previous year he has stayed. That we can calculate. In October, how many number of days are there? Totally 31. He came on 10th of October. So 10th of October to be included also. So how many more days are there here in October? 22. 9 days he was not here. 10th day he came. So 31 minus 9 is 22 days he stayed in the month of October. Isn't it? That is October month. After that it is easy. That is very important calculation. The month of arrival, month of departure, you have to be very careful. After that, these are all just number of days in a month calculations. So October he stayed in India for 22 days because he arrived on 10th of October. Then after that October, November comes 30, December 31, January 31, February 29. Be careful, not 28 because this is 1920. Because of that. It was earlier something, then it's a different story. So February here it is 29, March 31. Fine. So total days he stayed in India during the previous year is 174. That is one fact which is given here. So how to calculate that is this. 22 plus 30 plus 31 plus 31 plus 29 plus 31. That is the number of days of stay in India during the previous year. What about earlier years? 2018-19 it was given very clearly here itself. He came here for a period of 46 days. That is given already, nothing to calculate. So 18-19 he was in India for a period of 46 days. What about 17-18? 17-18 also we can calculate. Why? Because he has left India only on 1st of June. Left India on 1st of June. So how many days he stayed in India? April, May and June 1st also to be included, day of departure. So understand the departures arrivals very carefully. So this is departure. 1st June he has left India. So what? How many days he stayed in India during that previous year? Starting from April naturally. April 30 days, May 31 days, June 1 day. So total is how much? That is going to be 62 days during 17-18. Prior to that he was in India only. So that's what is mentioned. After a period of 10 years stay, he said. Prior to that what happened we don't know. But definitely from the information given, he should have stayed for full years. Of course, once again, 2016, 15-16 is a leap year, so 366. Prior to that 365, 365. Like that, for almost 10 years he was there in India only. So many years are there. We don't need all of them also. Don't try to write all these years, 10 years, waste of time. Don't do that unnecessary exercise. We should generally know that. See, prior to 2017, for 10 years he was in India. That is enough. So, just for understanding purposes, I am writing. In exam, you don't need to write all this because not required. Residential status, if it is required only, we do the calculations. What is important? Previous year, yes. Prior to that also, yes. So, let us see one by one. What is the residential status of this person ultimately for the assessment year 2020-21? As usual, we have to start checking the basic condition number 1. What is the answer? Is it satisfied or not satisfied? Definitely not satisfied. Why? Because he did not stay for 182 days or more during the previous year. So definitely the number of days of stay during the previous year is less than 182 days. Means basic condition number 1 is not satisfied, failed. This is not satisfied at all. Next, basic condition number 2. That has to be checked also. What is that to be checked? So here the condition is that he should stay in India during the previous year for 60 days. Plus he should have stayed in India for 365 days or more during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. So once again, one by one. Did he stay in India for 60 days during the previous year? Yes. Did he stay in India for more than 365 days during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year? Definitely yes. Because 1 year is enough for 365. More than that, definitely he stayed. So basic condition number 2 is satisfied. This is satisfied. So definitely what is the residential status of this person? For sure, 100% resident. Why? Basic condition number 2 is satisfied. But we cannot stop there. Again, we have to check additional condition number 1 and additional condition number 2. Both we have to check. These are all things you have to write in exam. B1, B2, A1, A2 is not enough in exams. This is for understanding purposes. The way you have to write in exam, you have to write the conditions and see whether that condition is satisfied by this person or not by calculating them. Now let us look at additional condition number 1 for checking ROR. And what is additional condition number 1 for ROR? That person should be a resident in India for at least 2 out of 10 years immediately preceding the previous year. Yes or no? Absolutely yes. We don't need to look at it. Just by looking at these many years he was resident, forget about 2 years. Preceding 10 years, he was the resident for 9 or almost 8 years he was resident. More than that actually. 9 years he was resident. Not required. 2 years is enough. Any 2 years if you see, he is definitely resident. Whenever he stayed for full year, automatically he is resident. So he is resident in India for a period of more than 2 years. More than 2 years. In 10 years immediately preceding the previous year. So automatically additional condition number 1 is satisfied. Then additional condition number 2, he should have been staying in India for 730 days or more during 7 years immediately preceding the previous year. Once again, 7 years if you go, 7 years immediately preceding the previous year, 730 days or more. Obviously by looking at it itself it is clear, almost it is coming to 1934 days. So more than 730 days, 2 years are enough actually. For 730 days, 2 years are enough. 365 is 730. So definitely here also we can be very clear. In the 7 years immediately preceding the previous year, did he stay for more than 730 days? Yes sir. Answer is yes. When both the additional conditions are satisfied, what do we call that person? That person is called as ROR, resident and ordinarily resident. So that is the final answer. This guy is resident and ordinarily resident for the assessment year 2020-21. That's all. This is how step by step we have to check conditions and residential statuses. During previous year, no 182 days. So basic condition number 1 failed. But basic condition number 2 satisfied. Additional condition number 1 satisfied. Additional condition number 2 satisfied. So ROR is the residential status of this BG. That can be a 2 marks question or 3 marks question, where we have to find out residential status by really calculating the number of days for each year. This much at least you have to do. After that you don't need to waste time on all this, because it is evident that, very clear that he stayed for more than 730 days during the 7 years. It is very clear that he is resident for more than 2 years during 10 years immediately preceding the previous year. And also it is evident that he stayed for more than 365 days during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. And during previous year anyway he stayed for more than 60 days. So all the things are, when they are very clear, don't need to show them everything. At least for 3-4 years if you do the calculations, remaining things you can just leave them as they are. And finally conclude the correct answer with logic, with the reason what you are giving to call this guy as a resident and ordinarily resident. That is the answer for question number 4. Hopefully everybody got the correct answer. If not, rectify them. And I'm just giving some more questions now in this class, just for continuation of the same discussion, and you should be able to calculate residential status very comfortably. Look at another question. This is there in the ICA material as part of the exercises. Mr. Ram is an Indian citizen, left India on 22nd of September 2019 for the first time to work as an officer of a company in Germany. Determine the residential status of Ram for the assessment year 2020-21. Assessment year 2020-21 is the question. So that's what is asked here. Indian citizen leaving India for employment outside India. That is very clear case. So is he falling in exceptional category or normal category? Definitely exceptional category. When he is exceptional category, only condition number 1 is applicable. Means he should be in India for a period of 182 days for sure. Let us check whether he is in India for 182 days or not. He left India on 22nd of September. When he left India on 22nd of September, how many days he stayed in India during the previous year? We can check that. April 30, May 31, June 30, July 31, August 31, September 22, including the day of departure. Then what is the total of all this? What is going to be the total of all this? That is going to be 175 days. When 175 days is the total number of days of stay of this person during the previous year, which is less than 182 days, what is the residential status of Ram for the assessment year 2021? Automatically non-resident. So since he is in exceptional category, the second condition does not apply, though he stayed for more than 60 days during the previous year. Though he would have definitely stayed for more than 365 days during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. How do we know that? Because he is going outside India for the first time. Though the second basic condition is completely satisfied, still that is useless because it is not applicable for this guy since he is leaving India for a employment during the previous year and he is an Indian citizen. So only 182 days condition is applicable, which he did not satisfy. So naturally his residential status in this case would be non-resident. You should write the reason about all this. What is the condition? What condition he satisfied? What condition he need not satisfy? That also you should write. Then only the marks will come. So full explanation will get the marks. This is just the calculation and conclusion. This is calculation. Total number of days is 175. Conclusion is he is non-resident. Marks will not come for this. Marks will come for explanation of how you got this and how you got this. But still, answer is also important. Answer is what finally? Non-resident. Next, one more question similar to this for a person who is say a kind of non-resident normally residing in US since 1990 came back to India on 1/4/2018 for a permanent settlement. And what will be his residential status for the assessment years 1920 and 2021? He is asking for 2 years. So assessment year 1920 means previous year. First of all, 2018-19, that we should know. 2018-19 is the previous year. And for the, he is already residing since 1990, almost like, what are we talking about? 28 years. 28 years he was in America only. Only first time he came after 28 years on 1/4/2018. So during the year 2018-19, how many days he stayed in India? Definitely 365 days. And naturally during the year 2019-20 also, because he came to India for permanent resident, during this year also he would have stayed for full year, but 2019-20 will have how many days? 366 days. So what is the residential status he is asking? Simple direct point. Once again, basic condition number 1. Did he stay in India for more than 182 days during the previous year? Answer is yes. Automatically, immediately, we don't need to even check the second condition. Automatically the person is resident, no doubt about it, since he stayed for 182 days or more during previous year. Second basic condition not required, directly he is resident. But that is not final answer. We should check whether he is ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident. How can we know that? For that we need to check additional condition number 1. Was he resident in India for at least 2 years out of 10 years immediately preceding the previous year? That's what we have to check. So immediately preceding the previous year 2018-19, what was his residential status during that year. That year also he was resident. This year also he is resident. But immediately preceding the previous year also, this guy was resident. 1 year, okay. Prior to that, what? Let us say 2000, we are going backwards now, 2017, 18 and backwards. Prior to that, what would have been his residential status in all those years? Definitely non-resident. Why? He was not in India at all. He was completely in US. So no 60 days, no 365 days, no 182 days. So all the years prior to 2018-19, any years, all 28 years like that he was there. All those years he would have been non-resident only. So when he is non-resident all those years, ultimately, can we say that he is satisfying the additional condition number 1? No. Why? If he has to satisfy additional condition number 1, he should have been resident for at least 2 out of 10 years. But he is resident, but only 1 out of 10 years. 2 out of 10 years is not satisfied. So additional condition number 1 not satisfied. Next, additional condition number 2, should we check? Actually not required. Why? Because one condition also, if it is not satisfied, automatically becomes a RNOR. Even then, if you want to just check the additional condition number 2, if you check that also, still it will not be also satisfied. Why? Because did he stay for 730 days or more during 7 years immediately preceding the previous year? Answer is no. He stayed for only 365 days, that too in only 1 year. Prior to that, he never stayed in India at all. So never he stayed for 730 days or more during 7 years immediately preceding the previous year. So additional condition number 1 is not satisfied. Additional condition number 2 is also not satisfied. Naturally, what is his residential status? Resident, but not ordinarily resident. That is the final answer under this question. You don't have to please write 28 years residential status and all. Don't waste time on that. We are interested in checking the conditions and finding the residential status, not knowing their life history and autobiography. We are not interested in that. So be very clear and precise in actually finding out the correct information, doing the required calculations only, and most importantly identifying what is the useless information. That also plays a crucial role in solving the questions generally in income tax, particularly in this context of determining residential status of individuals. Right? So this is the computation of or determination of residential status of individuals, which is the crux of this chapter, actually one part of this chapter. Determination of residential status of HUF, companies, partnership firm, other things, AOP and all that, those are not that important because those are all subjective in nature mostly, not objective. Why? Because calculations will not be there, it will be more of a judgment. And can we do judgment sitting in classrooms? Not possible. So those are all litigation things. Courts will decide mostly if there is a litigation. Otherwise, certain words will be left: control and management, place of effective management, business connection, like this, significance, presence. All these words are used by law very loosely, and those are very, I would say, gray areas when it comes to reality. We don't need to know about them in detail from a legal point of view, practically, because that is a huge area. But still, we will have to know the theory, since theory questions can come from that. As far as problems are concerned, definitely the residential status questions will contain majorly the residential status of individuals only. That's what we have discussed so far, and with that we can conclude today's session, and in the next session we will continue the discussion on how to determine the residential status of other types of SSEs, and not only that, also to find out the scope of total income, whether the residential status of any SSE has any impact on the taxability or non-taxability of the income of SSEs. Answer is yes, but how is it going to be determined by residential status? And this is what we used a word, very simple word called tax incidence. So how the tax incidence of different SSEs changes according to their residential status is the next discussion. In addition to also knowing in general, we are not going into the depth of all the other types of SSEs residential statuses, that is not required. But in general, how to determine the residential status of different types of SSEs. HUF is reasonably important because that also involves a bit of calculation if required. All other things are just theory things, partnership, company, all those things. How to determine residential status, we can just quickly go through those provisions in the next class. Till then, take care, bye bye, thank you very much.